Absent Friends by Ads Queenie Bond, Chapter 2. After a few months, Sonny was kind of part of my daily routine. Every day after work, he'd pop in for an hour or two and we'd drink beers and Sonny would tell me about his life as a ghost. It's quite fascinating, really. When someone dies, they either go to heaven or the Underworld. If they get sent to the Underworld, they have the option of getting a haunting license and can go and haunt the living. Each ghost has a specific area they can haunt. The size of the area depends on their rank. Sonny happens to be quite a high-ranking ghost. However, due to people being desensitized by film and TV, they just don't get scared by the old ways of doing things. So ghosts just started becoming friends with people instead.
The problem is, ghosts are getting lazy. Me included. Don't get me wrong, back in the day I could scare like the best of them. Oh yes, I was one of the best. The thing is, in this business, you've got to be creative. None of this slamming door shit, throwing stuff on the floor. Oh, and arranging furniture. What's that all about? That's decorating, not haunting. After a while, it gets old, you know. You get bored, times change, people move on. You seek other things to keep yourself occupied. Some ghosts just stay in the underworld and do the occasional haunt. Some haunt and haunt until they get caught by ghost hunters and then they eventually banned by death, which no one wants. And some just try to amuse themselves in any way they can, even if it means befriending breathers that don't have anything to live for anymore.
Breathers?
Oh, that's what we call you lucky bastards that get to be alive.
Lucky? Now that's something I didn't feel at all. I wrote in a stupid agony aunt column in a stupid magazine to stupid people that should probably be seeking professional help instead of emailing a 30-year-old man who's pretending to be a middle-aged old woman called Angela. And it looked like if I didn't back my ideas up, I was going to lose my job anyway. Oh, and my wife was dead. That was kind of a downer too. To be honest, Sonny, I wouldn't exactly call being alive as lucky. I'm in a dead-end job, my wife is dead. Oh, and my only friend is a ghost. So the salt over my shoulder isn't exactly working out for me, if I'm being perfectly honest. Sonny was normally quite laid back, but every now and again he'd just lose it. This was one of those times.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot you've been dead before. Listen, buddy, your wife may be dead, but I've lost way more people than you've had hot dinners. Oh, and you have a dead-end job? Well, I've got a dead-end job. Yeah, I've been doing this job for at least 100 years. I've seen millions of people be born and die again and again. So don't act like you're all hard done by, fella, because I've seen shit that you can't even dream of. So stop acting like a twat and sort your goddamn life out. Oh, and also, you could do a hell of a lot worse than me for a friend.
Okay, it sounds stupid, but that was probably the best I had felt in ages. It was like the way Emily used to snap me out of my moods. She'd just tell me to sort myself out and get on with it. But it wasn't in a malicious way. It was met with love. So was this. Just a little less homoerotic. 100 years? I continue. If you've been dead for 100 years, how come you look and act so modern?
Being dead doesn't work like being alive. You move with the times a lot easier. A child can adapt to its surroundings very well, but the older someone gets, the less they're able to adapt. Well, we don't have a specific age, but we just take in information and move with the times.
Still, 100 years, that's a while.
To be honest, mate, it's merely a ballpark figure. I can't remember anything about my life. I know I was a man and that I drank alcohol, but that's all I can remember. Your memory gets fuzzy after a while. The 60s definitely didn't help with that one.
Sonny laughed as he got up out of his chair to get his 10th beer of the night. I was only on my 3rd. Sonny was quite hard to keep up with, considering he didn't really get drunk. Sonny, why do you bother drinking if you don't get drunk? He emerged with a beer for him and a beer for me, which I begrudgingly took, knowing I'd definitely regret it in the morning.
Like I said, I remember alcohol from my previous life. I suppose it's just a link to that.
He cracked it open and guzzled down a hearty helping of his 10th beer. Sonny stared off into space. Again, this is something he did, but not very often. I'm not sure why he did it, but I just left him to it. Eventually he snapped out of it and said,
Right, it's time for me to be off. I've got a meeting with the big guy.
Who? God! Sonny laughed and downed his beer. Quite impressively, actually.
Now, you idiots, Death. He wants to have a chat about the Ghost Function Initiative. See you later, man.
And with that, he disappeared. As I said, the ghosts had started to become less and less scary, and Death, the head of the Underworld, was not happy. He had started up what he had called the Ghost Function Initiative, and Sonny was one of the people he had put in charge of it. Like I said, he was a high-ranking ghost. The problem was, heaven was getting more and more difficult to get into. Because of that, the Underworld was getting more and more crowded. With that many dead folk around, more and more of them wanted haunting licenses. But Death was getting increasingly concerned with the decrease in quality haunting going on. So he held meetings at the end of every cycle of the moon to discuss what needed to be done.
We have a serious fucking problem here. I started this Ghost Function Initiative to increase the quality of hauntings going on. However, with more and more crappy ghosts going out there, the quantity has decreased the quality. I wanted results, but all you idiots have given me is a goddamn headache. Look, a lot of you have done your time, I know. You're veterans at this haunting thing, and you've retired, and you know what? I am proud to call you guys ghosts, because you guys are the real deal. So, by next cycle, I want to see an increase in the terror and a decrease in the shit, or I am going to start revoking haunting licenses. This meeting is adjourned.
I felt kind of bad about Death laying down the law on Sonny and everyone like that. I mean, it was partly my fault that Sonny hadn't done that much work towards the initiative. Luckily, Sonny was quite good friends with Death, who often confided in Sonny about his most deepest concerns.
Sonny, you're one of the best haunters out there, like, damn fine, so I really need you to pull this one out of the bag for me.
Of course, sir. You can count on me. But, sir, if you don't mind me asking, why do you care so much about having good ghosts, sir?
Death walked towards its throne and put his head in his hands. I never met the guy, but from what Sonny told me, he was almost indescribable. Watching him was like seeing 1,000 people all blinking in front of your eye, like his entire body was made up of projections of people's last breaths. Sonny told me that he had a face, but yet didn't have a face. He had a voice, but yet didn't have one. The only things that were prominent were his hands. He wore gloves when he wasn't using them, but when he removed them, it was a sight to behold. Sonny said his hands were so vile, so disgusting, you couldn't look at them without vomiting. Although, as a ghost, he couldn't vomit, so that was fine. It was said they contained every disease known and unknown to man. Enough poison in his little finger to kill an entire population, and fingernails so sharp they could stab through solid steel in an instant. Of course, this is all speculation, as no ghost knew any more than what they could see. Death sighed and continued.
Sonny, do you miss the old days? I do. I used to actually attend deaths. I wore this really long cloak so you couldn't see my face, just my hands, and I carried a scythe around with me. It was awesome. People would scream and say, "Who are you?" And I would reply, "I am Death." Oh man. Oh, it was awesome. But soon, people actually started recognizing me. I'd arrive and they wouldn't be scared at all, just really gutted that they were dying. Because of all the TV and film versions of me, people just associated it, so it became less of a surprise. After a while I gave up and just did all my work from down here. But you ghosts have got the power to change all that. You can make people scared again. Bring back the paranormal and take it from those stupid ghost whisperers. I'm counting on you, Sonny. Do whatever it takes to get these newbies coming up with some fresh new haunts, or I'm cutting you all off.
Sonny told me that his talks with Death were always pretty intense, and he managed just to shake them off after. But this one was a lot harder to shake. Sonny didn't want to lose his haunting license, and to be honest, I didn't want him to either. I arrived at work the next day ecstatic as ever to get started on the latest Ask Angela entries. It was even more exciting than usual because I knew I was on thin ice after the last couple of entries. I sat down at my desk with the biggest cup of coffee I could find. Luckily, the drinks from last night had gone away with no after effects, so there was one upside. I opened my last batch of entries and looked through them. They were as ridiculous as usual. Obviously, I had to make sure that I didn't pick the same style of entry as I did the issue before, so it doesn't become repetitive. And as you can imagine, this became extremely difficult the more entries you get in, and you had to sift through a lot of crap. Like I said before, the things I get sent are just terrible, and today was no exception. Me mum and dad are swinging with me ex and her new boyfriend.
My chronic masturbating has led me to go blind.
My boyfriend is falling for his sat-nav. I'm an illegal asylum seeker looking for somewhere to hide. Can you recommend anywhere? But the strangest one I got that day went like this. Dear Angela, every night at about 8 o'clock I hear a strange banging noises coming from our kitchen. The other night I went to go and see, and a glass had lifted up and smashed on the floor all by itself. Oh, I know you might think I'm crazy, but I think I'm being haunted. Please, if you can help, I'll be most grateful. Yours sincerely, Jemima. See, a couple of weeks ago, I would have called this woman crazy, but hell, I'd be one big hypocrite now, wouldn't I? This didn't change the fact that I had no idea how to solve my problem, though, so I moved on to the next one. Just as I was about to get down to reading the next batch, Mr. Jacobs walked into my office.
Knock, knock. How's it all going in, Rory? Got any Ask Angela replies for me?
He smiles, with a slight whimsy in his eyes, the sort of whimsy one gets when they are aware of the immense power they have over the person they are speaking to. No, I'm afraid not, Mr. Jacobs. Still sifting through the entries now. He tuts and rolls his eyes like it's not actually a big deal. When reading inside, I can see a tumour arising from his stress levels.
Okay, well, we need to go to print by tomorrow afternoon, so I'm hoping for some results. I'm afraid it's another strike for you.
He smirks and then turns to leave, not before having a quick glance around my office. He says nothing about the state of it, although I'm sure in his mind he had a couple of things he could have said. He closed the door and I banged my head against the desk. I know I didn't like the job, but it was a job nonetheless. I really couldn't afford to be unemployed. All I could do was hope for a miracle. Back at home, I awaited the usual arrival of Sonny. I was fairly low on beer since he drank so many last night and I hadn't had time to go to the shop for more. All of a sudden the lights turned low and they started to flicker. The room shook and pictures fell from the walls. Everything started to shake and dramatic music began to play as the door to the kitchen flung open and a huge ball of fire burst forth. It began to speak in a loud, booming voice.
Rory, you have been chosen.
Sonny, stop pissing about and put all my stuff back, please.
I am not Sonny. I am Beelzebub, the Destroyer, the Bringer of Death, the end is nigh, and you have been chosen.
Sonny, I have very little beers tonight, and if you don't pack it in, you're going to get none. With that, the fire dissipated and the room went back to normal as Sonny emerged.
Man, why do you have to be such a spoilsport?
Sonny sat down next to me and pretended to sulk. Because it gets boring you testing out all these new tricks on me. It ain't gonna fly.
Fine.
So, how was work?
He continued from the kitchen. Pretty shit, man. I've got to hand in my entries for printing tomorrow or I'm most likely gonna get the sack.
Shit, for real?
Sonny handed me a beer and I took a swig. Yep. In fact, it's probably a good thing I don't have too many beers tonight because I should probably get on with some replies. I got out my laptop and started typing and Sonny groaned.
Well, at least let me help you.
No, it's fine, mate. Trust me, these letters are so ridiculous. I mean, check this one out.
Dear Angela, I seem to be having a problem with my sphincter shutter speed. My girlfriend is starting to lose her sense of smell and people avoid me on the tube. What should I do?
I mean, what the hell do they expect me to write? Sonny starts laughing hysterically and lands on the couch.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Do people seriously write in with that sort of stuff?
I nod as I begin searching for another entry. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, take this one for example. Dear Angela, every night at about 8 o'clock, I hear a strange banging noises coming from our kitchen. The other night, I went to go and see, and a glass had lifted up and smashed on the floor all by itself. Oh, I know you might think I'm crazy, but I think I'm being haunted. Please, if you can help, I'll be most grateful. Yours sincerely, Jemima. I mean, where on earth am I supposed to start with that one? Sonny thinks for a second.
So you say it's every night at 8?
I nod and Sonny thinks again.
What you do is change the clock in the kitchen to say half an hour late. So when it says 7:30, the time should actually be 8. Wait for about 20 minutes, and if there's no answer, grab a glass and smash it or bang about a bit. If there is an answer, change the time of the clock to be an hour later and do the same thing. It tricks the idiot and confuses it because it thinks it's already haunted that night. 9 times out of 10 they don't come back, and if they do, just keep doing it. The idiots will soon get the picture. God, I hate poltergeists.
Sonny then jumped up in the air and started flying around the kitchen.
I forgot how much I love flying. Definitely a perk of being a ghost. It's like a sexy pigeon.
While Sonny amused himself, I had to think about what he said. Could I really use that for an Ask Angela reply? It's so specific, people might think me mad. But I really was on thin ice. I decided I'd just take his advice. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? The day after next, I was sat in Mr. Jacobs' office, ready to be read the riot act. He entered the office, sat at his desk, and got out a vanilla yogurt and a spoon without saying a word and began to eat it. After he had finished, he licked his lips, got out the printed copy of Greetings magazine, and turned to the Ask Angela page. He read out the entry about the poltergeist to me, then placed the magazine down and looked me in the eye.
Do you mind explaining to me what the hell this is?
He said in possibly the most serious tone I've ever heard. I was in for it. Well, sir, it's like this.
And how you came up with this rubbish?
I began to stutter. I just couldn't think of a decent response. He continued.
And why the hell this woman has emailed in just now to say how it worked? And thank you so much to Angela.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The advice actually worked.
I don't know how you did it, Rory, and frankly I don't want to know, but this is the only positive feedback we've ever had from the Ask Angela page. You got any more entries like this woman's one? With ghosts?
I think so, sir. Most likely. Mr. Jacobs leant back in his chair and grinned.
Enough for a full 2-page spread?
I wasn't sure I could quite hear what he was saying at this point. Was I actually awake? Sorry, sir. Did you say 2 pages?
Yes, Rory. This is amazing. This is going to be huge. And you're not going to be Ask Angela anymore. No. From now on, you're going to be Ghostbuster Gertrude.
Yes, it had happened. My boss had gone completely mad. But he wasn't wrong. This was the only time Ask Angela had any positive feedback. That sounds amazing, sir. Can I just ask one favour?
Anything, Rory.
Could it be Ghostbuster Greg instead? Absent Friends by Ads Queenie Bond. Starring Ads Queenie Bond as Rory, Maxim Thompson as Sonny, Chlo Kitteridge as Death, and Paul Malpas as Mr. Jacobs. Music by For the Hornets. Artwork by Lee Smith.